So today I'm going to be talking about what would happen if the Russian-Ukrainian war never happened. Now, of course, this event, which took place around 9 months ago, has really impacted the world as of recently, and honestly, it's hard to tell what the world would be like if this never took place. Of course, there wouldn't be a war, so humanity would be on a more safer track to maybe not dying, but possibly we could have seen another war broke out, so it's honestly hard to say. So today we're going to be discussing what could have happened or how the world would be different. If you do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We are currently at 81,000 subscribers and we are pushing for 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We have around a month and a quarter to go, and honestly, I think we can do it. We just really need to get these videos out here, so make sure you guys are showing as much support as you can, commenting, sharing, liking. All of those good things will help boost us there, hopefully by the end of this year. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Now, of course, the Russian-Ukrainian war, top headline. Everyone knows about it. Everyone knows what's been happening. Everyone knows, hopefully, who the good and bad, well, actually, I wouldn't say there is any good and bad guys, but there's obviously an aggressor and a defender. So if Russia never put troops on the border and then eventually entered into Donetsk and then eventually never invaded Ukraine, what would the world look like? Well, there would be a lot less unity in terms of the West. We would definitely not have Sweden and Finland joining NATO. That would be out of the question. The support for NATO in those countries was at like 30%, and then as soon as the war started, it jumped to 60%. So that was the only reason these guys had interest. So without the Russian war in Ukraine, Sweden and Finland would not be in the process of joining NATO at this very moment. Number two, gas prices would be a lot lower. I know that gas prices is a touchy subject for some people in the US who can't comprehend world politics, but honestly, around the world, prices would be low, they'd be down. Well, they wouldn't be, well, actually, no, they would be pretty low. If we counter in world inflation and then just greedy oil companies, it would still be higher than it was, say, 5 years ago. But honestly, it would, like, I think in the US, the average is like 350. It would probably be around 280, maybe like 3. I don't know. It wouldn't be as high as it is. So people can stop complaining about that. And then also, like, war is a very economically impactful thing. If the war never happened, maybe inflation rates in the world wouldn't be so high. Maybe countries wouldn't be racking up debt. Maybe the US wouldn't be in turmoil. And overall, as predicted, it would be a much better world if this war never broke out. But now let's go ahead and zoom in on Ukraine and Russia. So what's happened since the war has started? We figured out that Russia is pretty fraudulent in their #2 position for military ranking, and we've also figured out that Ukraine is a very patriotic country. They're also a very capable country. There's over 100,000 people dead from the Ukrainian war. Those 100,000 people never would have died. Obviously a good thing. We wouldn't have all of the Western countries dumping millions of dollars into Ukraine, which is probably better for their economies because they're not spending as much. Russia would still have Crimea as themselves. I know no countries recognized it, but the fact that they controlled over it for, was it 4 years or 6 years? I think that's enough to maybe like forget the fact that it used to be Ukrainian. Once again, I kind of did this in the last video. I'm not saying that Crimea is Russian. It belongs to Ukraine, but is occupied by Russia. I think this whole situation would kind of start to dwindle down, and maybe we would even have some countries starting to recognize Crimea as Russian as opposed to a part of Ukraine. That could over heighten or lessen tensions between these two countries. I would probably heighten them because Zelensky, you know, the whole of Ukraine, that needs to be a thing for him. But hey, you never know, because this is an alternative timeline at this point. There is an alternative timeline where Russia never invaded Ukraine and the world is just normal. But unfortunately, we're on those little off branches, and yeah, this happened. So another thing, we would probably have a very, I don't know, it's just hard to say. But I think something that we should probably factor in is China and Taiwan. Now, of course, these two countries have always been back and forth for like the last 4 years, but maybe we would see China start to invade Taiwan. Now that we saw the West's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China has like, they've kind of not hinted at, I mean, they've hinted at it, but they haven't like tried to invade Taiwan in any way. Perhaps if Russia didn't invade Ukraine, they wouldn't know the consequences of doing so, and they invade and they get hit by the sanctions, and the whole world suffers even more because China has a pretty good control over the economy of the world. But nonetheless, China's hit by sanctions, and then we have Russia deciding not to invade Ukraine because they saw the consequences of China. Basically what I'm saying is Russia's invasion of Ukraine could have been replaced by China's invasion of Taiwan. Now that's a little bit more unlikely simply because China understands the fact that there will be consequences more than Russia and Vladimir Putin do. I don't think the government of China is that stupid, like, whereas the government of Russia, Vladimir Putin, I don't know what he's doing up there. He's kind of crazy, but I think they're a little bit more reasonable. Of course, these are the communist Chinese who do bad things over here, but in terms of geopolitics and understanding the consequences, I think they have a better grasp than Russia does. And then another thing is North Korea. Now, North Korea hasn't been talked about much, but on the sideline, they have been doing a lot of things since the Russian-Ukrainian war started. Of course, they have been supplying Russia with resources, but they've also been firing missiles everywhere. I think one literally did that, and that caused Japan to go into panic, but luckily it didn't hit. And then we had the US and South Korea do naval drills all over the place. North Korea sent some airplanes over here, and everyone freaked out. Of course, nothing came of it, because if that did happen, then I would be talking about it in a different video. But tensions just risen up. This whole Russian-Ukrainian war thing has really started to, I wouldn't say divide the world, but it has started to show like what countries support other countries. So we know now from this that Iran is definitely a Russian ally from this. Of course, we would have already figured that out beforehand, but now we're like 100% solid. Whereas if this didn't happen, you know, Iran, like, no, they're Iran, of course they're Russian aligned, they don't like the US, but would they fight for them? Now we know that's true. Now on the other side of that, we figured out that some countries aren't actually really good friends with Russia, and that example would be Armenia, who has already threatened to leave CSTO. I think they're in the process of doing it right now. Should be on by February, I believe. Before this whole war thing, we said Armenia is a solid Russian ally. Now we've just kind of decided that they're neutral. And this whole thing could be gone through with every country in the world. Of course, the countries supporting to condemn this action are more Western leaning, and then the ones that have abstained are going to be more neutral or maybe even Russian leaning. And then of course the ones that have just flat out rejected it, I think there's only 5, Eritrea being one of them, Russia, Belarus, and I don't remember the other 2. It was North Korea and someone else. Well, those 2 countries, we already know that they're strong Russian allies. Basically what I'm saying is that the world has shown its true colors. I don't want to like say it in a bad way, but we're understanding the sides of which countries align to. So yeah, I mean, a lot would be changing, and I just kind of hit all of the brief ones, the simple to understand ones. Of course, there's going to be a lot more that I just simply cannot go over because you don't know. Heck, if Russia didn't invade Ukraine, maybe Australia would have blown up and sank into the ocean. There's no way to know. But of course, overall, the entire world has gotten a lot more tense. There's been a lot more, what's the thing called? The tensions. Yeah, there's a lot more of that. Countries are, they're gearing up. I mean, they're not gearing up for a world war, but there's been an increase in military spending in a lot of countries, especially the West. There's an increase of US troops in Europe, especially along the eastern flank with the Baltics and Romania, Poland, Slovakia. I don't know about Hungary, but I know Poland, Slovakia, and I think Bulgaria as well. The UK has gone through 3 prime ministers this year, so that's something. And also, let's talk about Russia itself. Now, of course, we know that Russia is suffering right now from the sanctions. They're also suffering from just instability inside the country. There's tons of protests going on along the country. Of course, we don't hear about them because Russia censors it, covers it up, and beats the protesters. We don't know this. There's been videos. But if Russia didn't do this, then Russia as a whole would be off a lot better than it is now. They're not gaining anything from this war. They're losing everything. They're losing their economy, they're losing their military, and they're losing the trust of their citizens. If Russia didn't do this, economy would be up and good. We would have, of course, a lot more unity among the people, just simply because as soon as you declare war, you're either going to gain unity or you're going to lose unity. In this case, Russia lost unity. I can't really think of any cases where a country has declared war where they've gained unity. I think maybe the US involvement in the War of 1812 is all I can think of right now. Of course, with that happening, France and Britain were blowing up some American ships in the Atlantic. The US declared war on Britain because of it. And then everyone was like, yeah, stop the British. And then they stalemated a war. Yeah, Russia lost unity. And just overall, Russia's a mess right now. If they didn't go after Ukraine, I don't think they would have another conflict with another country. I highly doubt that any other country on this border is like thinking Russia's going to invade them. Ukraine would be the most obvious, maybe Finland, since they didn't join NATO in this timeline. Or maybe Georgia, they go after the rest of Georgia. If they go after the rest of Georgia, I don't think there would be as many consequences for Russia as if they went after Ukraine. And that's simply because Georgia is just, I mean, it's just there. Of course, there would still be consequences. The consequences probably wouldn't be as dire. And here I go again, but like I said, just hard to tell. This is being an alternative timeline. I don't think Russia and China would be as close. They definitely wouldn't be because this war has drawn them closer, especially leading up to it. I think Russia and India's ties would be a lot stronger because India, they haven't necessarily gone away from Russia, but they have gone on a more neutral path. As we know, before the war, these guys were close together simply because of trade, military, economics. Now let's talk about NATO. So NATO would not be as unified as it is right now. Of course, all 30 members, 28 members are on the same track. They're all together. They're all like, yeah, save Ukraine, let's do this. Of course, there's been no action by NATO in terms of military, but they have been supplying Ukraine and keeping it up for, as I said, 9 months now. So if this war never happened, NATO would just kind of be there. It wouldn't necessarily like disband, but support for the alliance would be a lot lower than it is now. Do I see any countries joining it? No, not really, because who's going to join? Sweden and Finland are neutral. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Kosovo if we get some support from Romania and Greece. I highly doubt that though. I don't honestly see any other NATO contenders other than Ukraine, and that's only if Russia were to invade the rest of Georgia. If they do that, Ukraine is probably in. If they don't do that, Ukraine stays neutral, or aligned but neutral. But let's also talk about like 1991 up to now. Now, of course, Russia hasn't done anything too dramatic since it became a country, other than invading Crimea and taking over Abkhazia and South Ossetia, but that's all happened since 2008. But this has been something that's kind of been brewing and leading up to this. Of course, the first couple leaders of Russia have been fairly neutral, but most of the leaders have just been Vladimir Putin, because he's served forever. I say served, but he kind of put himself there. So yeah, ever since he came into power, this has been brewing. Of course, he's going to go after the two countries which don't like him. As of 2014, that was Ukraine, and then as of... when did Georgia stop liking Russia? Probably since they got independence, but ever since then, you know, they took South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Basically, any countries that aren't NATO members that don't like Russia feel the blade of burn. Of course, the Baltics are protected by NATO, Finland's protected by the US, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, all NATO members. Moldova doesn't border Russia, Belarus is an ally, Kazakhstan is a sort of ally. You're not going to invade Mongolia, that's useless. And then China, you're not going to do that. I guess you could also say North Korea, but there's no strategical point in doing that. And then there is Azerbaijan, but they are allied to Turkey, who is allied to Europe. So then you're left with Ukraine and Georgia, who neither of them like you, so invade them. Let's do that. All right, so honestly, that's probably gonna do it for this video. I'm invading this on Tuesday, so 11/22/22 is when I'm recording this. You're seeing this on 11/23/22, so I have like a lot of time. I don't have school tomorrow, so I have a lot of time to get this up, and you will most definitely see it. And if you don't see it, I'm probably dead. 18 minutes in recording here, and this is probably the shortest recording that I've done all year, and honestly, I'm feeling good about it. I have a nice long break ahead of me. I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can. Does that mean I'm not going to put as much effort into YouTube? Yes, actually, because I want to enjoy the break. Of course, whenever I get a school break, I'm probably going to put less time into YouTube simply because I am off school and I just want to relax. I want to do the things that I want to do. And that's exactly what I'm going to be able to do this upcoming weekend. So hopefully you guys do understand that. Of course, the video for Saturday will still be decent. I don't think it's going to be a geopolitical video like the last three have been. And you guys are liking this. So that makes me happy because I enjoy doing the videos like this. I just get to speak my mind. I don't really have to do much research because I'm just speaking my mind. I don't have to draw on the map. I don't have to recolor things. It's nice. I mean, I could just use the map as a placeholder. I don't have to fill countries in and say, oh, here we go. Here's Russia. That's not Russia. Here's Russia invading Ukraine for the 50th time in the video. I'm sure you guys get it. Don't worry, mapping is not gone. I will go back to it probably Saturday, maybe Wednesday. But yeah, so that is gonna do it for this video. 81,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for that. We are 19,000 away from 100,000. 19,000, that's a lot of people. However, it's possible. And you know, we do around 3,000 to 4,000 subscribers a month. So, you know, we do kind of have to times 4 times 5 that. Anything is possible though. We always have super huge growth by the end of the year. Just, I don't know why, but that just happens every year. And yeah, so let's get there. Let's get to 100K. If we don't hit it, whatever. We have January, we have February, we have March, we have all of next year to hit it. I'm not too worried about it, but of course, you know, ambitions, goals, let's get there. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.